Lesson 7.2, page number 507. The name of this section is called Basic Percent Problems. What we're going to do in this lesson is take some of the stuff that we've done as far as the percentages in lesson 7.1 and put those in an applicable way so you can see how they're actually used. If you look on page 508, we're given some real brief, not really even story problems, just one little sentence for each one there. And what we're doing is just finding out the answer to the question they're asking. Example 1 says, what number is 15% of 63? If you remember, we talked about what the word is and of meant. Of always means multiply, is always means equals. So what we can do is we could just rewrite these problems really quick and easily just by using those two words there to help us write. So if you look at example 1, it says what number? We're going to use whenever we see what number. We're going to just put an X there because that's our unknown. What number is 15% of, let me use a dot instead of an X there because I don't want it to be confused with this X, of 63. Okay, so key thing to remember, if they give the percent to you, you cannot use a percent to solve a problem. If it's got a percent symbol there or they say the word percent, you have to change that percent to a fraction or a decimal before you start combining terms. You can't take 15% times 63. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change our percent to a decimal because it's a lot easier to change it to a decimal than it is a fraction. So you move the decimal over 2 and you get 0.15. Therefore, 15% of 63 is 0.15 times 63, and that is 9.45. So 9.45 is 15% of 63. So if you want to know how many, or how much change, or let's say you're leaving a tip, a 15% tip, and your bill was $63, $9.45 would be 15% of that 63. So real basic, just you remember the of and the is, meaning multiplication or equals, and you'll be good to go. So for example, number 2 on page 508, what percent is, what percent of 42 is 21? So that's what we're looking for, is the answer to that. So we're looking for what percent. You can actually erase this percent. I just put it up there just as we were reading through here. Let's go ahead and figure this out. X equals, we divide both sides by 42, and X is 21 over 42, and when you divide that out, X equals 0.5, or, because this is in decimal form, we need to change that to percentage, 50%. So we didn't work with any percent up here, and our answer is a decimal, and we have to change it to a percent. And that's another thing to remember. Whenever you're solving these, you're not working with percents, and if they want it as a percent, at the end you're going to have to move that decimal place over to in order to make it into a percent. So not only do you not work with percents, you don't get a percent as an answer until you turn it back into it. Alright, so example 3. 25 is 40% of what number? Again, change that to a decimal, times X, divide, 25 then divided by 40, or 0.4, is 62.5. And that is our answer. And it's not asking for percent there. It's saying what number is 40% of what number is 25. So because we're not asking for or looking for a percent, we don't change this to a percent. The only time you're going to change that, move the decimal and change it to a percent, is when it asks you for a percent in the answer. All right, so we continue on. Example 5 on page 509. What percent of 78 is 31.9? Okay, so x times 78 equals 31.9. I just took the percent sign off there. So in order to find this, we divide this side by 78 to get rid of the 78 there, so our x is by itself. So 31.9 divided by 78, x then equals 0.409. Now the question here again was what percent? So now we're going to have to change this to a percent. In order to change that to a percent, remember 2 decimals to the right, 40.9% equals my x. Alright, this next section has to do with food labels. If you look on a box of cereal or something, you know, it has that food label there on the bottom of 509 with how many calories and all of the nutritional stuff on there. And this one says, according to the nutrition label below, what percent of the total number of calories, okay, amount per serving, calories, 150, are fat calories. Okay, so 150 calories, total calories, is fat calories, right next to it, 90. So what percent of the total number of calories is fat calories? Okay, so this is going to be x times 150 equals 90. Divide both sides by 150. Those cancel. X equals 90 over 150. And when you divide that out, you get x equals 0.60, which is 60%, because we have to change that to a percent. So part C of 510, 511, and 512 is pretty much a waste. It's just teaching you another way to solve these, and there really isn't an easier way. So I would just as soon you stick with the way I just showed you, and you'll be good to go. Problem set 7.2. Not any different than what we just did. None of them are any different at all. Let's look at some of the applying concepts, all the nutrition stuff they have there. What they're asking for, make sure you read the instructions. For each nutrition label, find what percent of total calories comes from fat calories. Okay, so we're looking at the percent here. Round to the nearest tenth of a percent. And then it says, then indicate whether the label is from a food considered healthy. One of the things that's important as far as whether the food is considered healthy is if the number of fat calories is less than 30% the total number of calories, then it's healthy. So if you look at 509, example 7, it tells you about that 30%. Or at the top of page 507 also gives you that information. So you're just going to take that and find out what the percentage of fat calories are, and if it's 30% or less, then it would be healthy. So for example, like the spaghetti there, you've got X percent of the total calories equals fat calories. So we've got x times 210 equals 10. Divide by 210, divide by 210, and x equals 4.8% when you change it from a decimal to a percent. And there we are, good to go with 7.2.